everyone, welcome back to Diabetes Every Day. Once again, I'm registered dietitian, nutritionist, and certified diabetes care and education specialist, Toby Smithson. And if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and log into diabeteseveryday.com website to sign up for my newsletter. So I get this question asked a lot. Sometimes from people with diabetes, but also from family or friends of people who have diabetes. Which is the worst type of diabetes? Type 1 or type 2? Let's first review the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. In a previous video that was titled, "Can you get diabetes from eating too much sugar?" I explained that type 1 diabetes happens when the body cannot produce insulin, and the cause is unknown. We do know that our own immune system mistakenly attacks insulin-producing cells, but the cause of why this happens is unknown. We also know that insulin is required to keep blood sugar in a normal range. So since those of us who have type 1 diabetes do not make insulin, we must take insulin injections daily. This is part of the management of type 1 diabetes. With type 2 diabetes, insulin isn't working effectively to lower blood sugar levels, even though there's enough being produced. This is called insulin resistance. There are many factors that puts us at risk for developing type 2 diabetes, like ethnicity and excess body weight, and eventually it's likely that natural insulin production will fall off or stop. So, which type of diabetes can be labeled worst? At the moment, I say neither. Often people comment that type 1's the bad diabetes or the worst diabetes because we take insulin, and we are more subject to urgent dangers from very low or very high blood sugar levels. But it's really important to know what's going on in our bodies. When I think of the real dangers from diabetes, I think about heart, kidney, circulation, nerve, and eye complications that may occur from unmanaged diabetes over time. When type 1 diabetes is diagnosed, it typically is diagnosed very quickly and at a relatively young age. That can be an advantage. Once we know we have been diagnosed with diabetes, we can use the core behaviors: healthy eating, being physically active, monitoring blood sugar, taking medications as prescribed, managing stress, and learning coping skills. And usually some very effective tools like continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps can be used to consistently manage our blood sugar levels so we aren't placed at high risk for developing those long-term diabetes-related complications that I worry about. If you have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, understand that often the diagnosis doesn't happen until 10 years later. The symptoms of type 2 diabetes can be confused or shrugged off as, yes, I know I'm thirsty and I'm going to the bathroom a lot, but oh, that's aging. Or this is how I always feel, so it's not diabetes that I'm experiencing. The downside to not being diagnosed right away is that some of the diabetes complications can be starting to set in. If you don't know you have diabetes, most likely you aren't following those core behaviors to manage the blood sugar levels. And people with type 2 diabetes often don't qualify for those amazing tools for managing blood glucose. Finally, you may have the mistaken idea that type 2 diabetes isn't really all that serious. That would be wrong. So, what's the verdict? The early onset of type 1 diabetes leaves a lot of years for unmanaged diabetes to do damage. I'm approaching 54 years, but type 1 diabetes is impossible to ignore, and we now have these incredible tools to make management easier. Type 2 diabetes usually comes later in life, but it's easy to ignore, and complications often have had a head start on diagnosis and treatment. The real lesson here is that better or worse depends whether you or I are willing to take diabetes seriously and be consistent with our diabetes management. Start today, not tomorrow. You owe it to yourself. This is a self-managed condition, and I have a lot of videos to try and make living with diabetes easier. Until next time, cheers to your health.